Okay, let's jump right in. There was one quote from our source material this week that really just hit me. It said, family farms don't fail because of bad soil or bad seasons. They fail because of bad structure.
That quote is, well, it's everything, isn't it? It's the core of what we're digging into today. We're going way beyond just, writing a will.
Right.
We're looking at how asset owners in South Africa, entrepreneurs, farmers, anyone with real, tangible assets can use trusts and company structures to build what the research calls an asset protection fortress.
An asset protection fortress. I like that. So, our mission today is really to give you, our listener, a clear map of how this works, how this strategic structuring separates your wealth from your risk.
And why it's absolutely essential for survival. It's the key to continuity, especially in high-risk businesses like farming or, any growing small business. You have to plan for the storm before it hits.
Exactly. And if you're out there building something, generating wealth, you need to understand that the system itself, it can leave you very exposed.
It's designed to, whether you
Yeah.
realize it or not.
So let's start right there. Section 1, the problem of exposure. What are the common, maybe even unconscious risks that our sources kept flagging?
Well, the biggest one is the simplest. It's holding valuable assets in your own name,
Just personally.
personally.
Yeah.
Your house, the farm, that holiday home. If it's in your name, any personal creditor, a car accident, a sour business deal, even a messy divorce can come and take it. There's no wall, no protection.
Okay, so that's mistake number 1. What was the second big flaw the research pointed out?
It's mixing your assets with your risk inside the business itself. So your main trading company, the OpCo, also owns the factory building or the expensive machinery.
Right, I see that all the time.
We call it asset bleed because if that trading company, which carries all the daily risk, gets into trouble, say it gets liquidated or sued,
Then the building and machinery get pulled into the fire with it.
exactly, you're suddenly risking your entire long-term wealth to solve a short-term cash flow problem.
And there's one more, one that feels so normal in business but is just so dangerous. Signing personal sureties. Why is that such a critical error?
Because you're basically taking the armor that the company structure is supposed to give you, and you're just taking it off voluntarily.
You're telling the bank, ignore the company.
You're saying, if the business can't pay, forget the business. Come after me. Come after my house, my savings, anything in my name. It's a self-inflicted wound.
That really frames the risk clearly.
Yeah.
So what happens when this goes wrong? What are the disaster triggers for a family farm or a generational business?
You pretty much put them into 4 buckets. First is just operational risk. A big lawsuit, a contract goes bad, your personal assets are on the line. Second, divorce. It can literally force you to sell half the business to pay out a settlement.
And then there's death.
Yes. If you own everything personally, the second you die, your entire estate freezes. Everything.
And for a business that needs cash flow, that's a death sentence.
It can be. For months, no one can make decisions, no one can access the bank accounts, the business just stops. And the fourth one, which our sources call the silent killer of generational wealth in South Africa.
Estate duty.
Estate duty. It's this hidden tax bomb that can force your family to sell the very assets you worked your whole life to build.
Let's just unpack that for a second. Why does it force a sale? It's not like the government wants to shut down farms, is it?
No, but the mechanism is just brutal for illiquid assets. When you die, SARS needs the estate duty paid in cash, and they need it pretty quickly, usually within months.
And if the only real asset is the farm itself, the land.
You have to find cash, and if there is no cash, your heirs are forced into a fire sale. They might have to sell off 30, maybe 40% of the land just to pay the tax bill.
Wow.
And just like that, decades, maybe even centuries of work, it's gone. The brutal takeaway is this. Without the right structure, your whole legacy is one lawsuit, one divorce, or one tax audit away from complete collapse.
The stakes couldn't be higher. So that's the problem. Let's move to section 2. How do we build this fortress? And the foundation, it seems, is the trust.
A trust is, at its heart, a legal arrangement. It's a way to move assets from you, the founder, into the hands of a separate group, the trustees.
So the founder is the giver.
Right. And the trustees are the managers. And they manage those assets for the sole benefit of the people you name, the beneficiaries.
Giver, manager, receiver. Okay. And we're specifically talking about a living trust here, an inter vivos trust. What's the difference?
A huge one. A trust in your will only exists after you die. An Inter Vivos Trust is created and working for you while you're alive. It's actively protecting your assets and managing risk right now, today.
Okay, so let's get to the core mechanism. We keep saying separation. How does that actually work in a real structure with a real trading business?
This is the genius of it. You separate legal ownership from day-to-day operations. The trust. It owns the valuable long-term stuff, the land, the patents, the generational wealth. It's a separate legal person, totally insulated from your personal life.
And then you have your company, the OpCo.
And that's your risk vehicle. The OpCo is what employs people, signs contracts, and takes all the daily business hits.
So if the OpCo gets sued or goes under,
The creditors can't touch the assets in the trust. They're protected by that thick legal wall. And it also means continuity. If something happens to you, the trust just keeps going. The assets don't freeze. The business can continue.
so the trust holds the value, the company takes the risk. It's so simple in concept.
It is. And once it's set up, it gives you a clean, predictable structure, which, believe it or not, banks actually prefer.
That's a great transition. Let's get into section 3 and use the farming trust model as our main case study. I mean, farming is the ultimate stress test, right? Huge assets, huge risk, huge debt.
It's the perfect example. The kind of sophisticated farm structures we looked at all follow a similar pattern. At the very top, you've got the family trust. That's the fortress. It owns the most important asset, the farmland.
And then below that,
Sometimes you'll have a holding company, a holdco. It kind of acts as a financial controller, managing shares and making sure capital flows correctly between the different parts.
But at the very bottom, taking all the punches.
Is the operating company, the OpCo. It does the planting, the harvesting, it manages the staff and the sales. All the operational risk stays right there, contained, far away from the land.
okay, but what about financing? A farm needs millions in loans. Don't the banks hate all these layers?
That's a huge misconception. Banks don't hate complexity. They hate uncertainty. When the structure is this clear, trust owns land, OpCo runs business, the bank actually feels more secure.
How so?
Well, the trust leases the land to the OpCo. That lease payment is a deductible expense for the OpCo. So when the OpCo needs a loan for seeds or fertilizer, the bank lends against the OpCo's cash flow. And because the main asset, the land, is safe in the trust.
The trust doesn't have to put up the whole farm as security.
Exactly. It might only need to provide a very limited security. The bank knows the farm itself isn't at risk from the OpCo's daily business or the owner's personal life. It's a much cleaner risk for them.
That is a total game changer. Let's make this real with the first case study. The Vandermerwe family. This is a perfect before and after.
It really is. I mean, this was a 5-generation farm, incredibly successful, but its structure was a time bomb. Before the trust, the father owned all the land in his personal name.
With personal bank loans tied to his house, I imagine.
You got it. And then, our sources say, he went through a really messy divorce.
And suddenly that personal problem threatened the whole business.
It threatened 5 generations of work. Because the farm was a personal asset, the court could have literally forced the sale of half the land. And on top of that, they were facing a massive estate duty bill down the line. It was totally volatile.
So what happened after they implemented the proper farming trust structure?
The change was night and day. The land was immediately shielded from personal creditors, from the divorce. The risk was contained in the OpCo. And, crucially, the succession plan became a formality instead of a future family war.
So the kids weren't fighting over who gets which piece of land.
No. Each child was given clear beneficiary rights in the trust deed. It avoided the estate duty trap, and it made the whole operation bankable again. They future-proofed their legacy.
That's continuity right there. Now, the second case study, the 2 brothers. This one shows what happens when you ignore all of this.
Oh, this was a collapse scenario. The 2 brothers ran everything jointly, land in their personal names, no trusts, and critically, no proper marital contracts. Then, one of the brothers died, suddenly.
And because his assets were personal, his estate froze, which means
Total gridlock. Bank accounts locked. Decisions couldn't be made. Cash flow just vanished.
Yeah.
The surviving spouse started demanding her share. The kids started fighting over what things were worth.
so the business didn't fail because of a bad crop. It failed because of legal paralysis.
It almost shut down completely. They had to scramble frantically to restructure after the disaster. They moved the land into a trust, set up separate holdcos for each family. It was a mess.
But the structure saved it in the end.
It did. That intervention restored the bank's confidence, it gave everyone clarity, and it protected the surviving brother's family from any future problems from the deceased brother's family. The lesson is, Good structure means the next generation inherits a business, not a lawsuit.
Okay, the benefits seem overwhelming. Asset protection, clear succession, tax reduction. So why doesn't everyone just do this? Which brings us to Section 4, the need for expert guidance.
Because the concept is simple, but the execution is a minefield. It's incredibly complex, and if you get it wrong, the consequences are severe.
What's a common mistake people make trying to do it themselves?
Well, there's a huge legal requirement in South Africa for family trusts. You have to appoint at least one independent trustee. This person can't be a family member or anyone connected to you.
And why is that so important?
Because that independence is what proves to the courts and to SARS that the trust is a real separate entity. If you're the only trustee, they can just argue the trust is your alter ego, your puppet, and they can tear down the whole structure. All that protection disappears.
So the independent trustee is non-negotiable, and then you have the tax side of it. This isn't just a simple tax dodge.
Not at all. In fact, if you manage it badly, it's a tax trap. If the trust holds on to income instead of distributing it to beneficiaries, it gets taxed at a flat rate of 45%.
45%, that's punitive.
It's designed to be. And capital gains tax can be as high as 36%. One mistake in compliance, and you could wipe out all the benefits and end up with a massive tax bill.
So the risk of getting it wrong is just too high. This is where you need a professional, a dedicated trust consultant.
Exactly. Our sources pointed to the approach of someone like trust consultant Lumka Sturman, who really focuses on educating clients. A good consultant doesn't just draft a document. They make sure you understand it, they manage the compliance, and they translate all the legal jargon into plain English.
They're like the architect and the long-term maintenance crew for your fortress. They do the analysis, design the structure, and then provide that ongoing support. I liked the idea of an annual fortress review.
It's absolutely essential. Your life changes. You get married, divorced, you start a new business. The trust has to adapt. A yearly review ensures it's still compliant and still effective against whatever new risks you're facing. It's about dynamic security.
So after this whole deep dive, what's the main takeaway for you, the listener?
I think it's that if you are building assets, real estate, a business, anything of value, the question is no longer if you need a structure, but how sophisticated it needs to be to match your life's complexity.
So you've seen a good structure protects your assets from debt and divorce. It helps you sidestep the estate duty trap, and it creates a real path for generational wealth. It keeps the farm safe, the family protected, and the business bankable.
And that really leads to the final thought we want to leave you with today. Trusts are, I think, one of the most powerful tools for preserving wealth across generations, but they're so often misunderstood. By setting one up correctly, you're not just managing your money, you're proactively securing your family's legacy for the next 100 years.
That's a powerful idea. And it highlights the need for expert guidance. If you're thinking about your own risk or how to design beneficiary rights, this is not something to do on your own.
No. If you're an asset owner and you're looking for clear, practical solutions to build your own fortress, we definitely recommend checking out the resources available from a professional like trust consultant Lumka Sturman.
You can visit her website. It has a lot of information on how she helps clients simplify all this complexity and build that generational security. The address is www.lumkasturman.com. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.